All right, welcome everyone. Holding by this Q&A. Again, I want to welcome everyone to this Q&A. Question did come in, and the question was, let's bring it up here. Question was like this. Someone asks, person is owed money. Person is owed money by his boss, right? Make it easy. Person, whatever, it works. Boss owes him money, right? Boss owes him money. So the question is, what is the question? The question is, the boss is a Jew, right? So now the boss is a Jew. Question's gonna be, okay, he's a secular Jew, atheist, right? Doesn't fulfill the laws of Shabbos. All right, a Jew, does not fulfill the laws of Shabbos, right? That is true. It's like he denies God, has a status in certain ways as a non-Jew, like he couldn't cook for you, can't touch your wine, like whatever, different things. He's got the status of a non-Jew. But says anyway, makes a claim he's an atheist, doesn't keep Shabbos, okay. None of this really matters, whether he's a Jew or a non-Jew, right? But okay, this person's a Jew, he doesn't keep Shabbos, right? He doesn't keep Shabbos, doesn't really keep mitzvahs at all. So the question is, can he be reported to the IRS? Can he be reported to the IRS or any other agency for violation of tax laws or any other employer contract or payment laws? So since he's not related like a Jew, he doesn't keep Shabbos. And doesn't matter if I'm a JIT, if I'm a Jew in training, or a Jew in general. So this is whatever, number of issues here. One is the main issue. The main issue is that if a person, is a person allowed, is a Jew, let's say better, is a Jew allowed to turn in another Jew to the authority, right? That status, and we'll see, we're going to clarify that. That status is called a moser, right? A moser means to give someone over. So basically, you're giving someone over to the authorities. And by giving someone over to the authorities when you're not allowed to, right? Let's clarify that, when you're not allowed to. So if you're not allowed to, the prohibition is very severe. And basically, the prohibition is you lose your portion of the world to come. Right? In other words, if a Jew turns in another Jew to the whatever, Jewish authorities, non-Jewish authorities, doesn't really matter. You turn them into the authorities when you're not allowed. Right? When you're not allowed to, that's one of the worst prohibitions a Jew can do. I mean, a lot of bad things a Jew can do. That's one of them. Right? That essentially is one of them. By turning them in to the authorities so severe, you lose your portion of the world to come. Now, someone's going to say, but the person caused damage, right? So maybe you say, okay, I can only take it to a rabbinical court. So if a rabbinical court really had power, a rabbinical court had power that it used to, which it doesn't today, right? So if it's two Jews, right, we'll make this easy before I get to the main question. Can explain a number of things there. If it's a Jew, if it's two Jews, then there's an obligation to go to the rabbinical court, right? Rabbinical court deals with all kinds of issues. They deal with marriage, divorce. They deal with kashrus, probably. Rabbinical court could deal with kashrus, kashrus as well, and damages, right? Well, damages as well. Someone, caused damage to someone else. So if there are two Jews involved, you have two Jews involved, there's an obligation to go to the rabbinical court. Right? There's an obligation, let's repeat that. There's an obligation to go to rabbinical court. Now, let's say in this case, this person, let's say he had two Jews, and this Jew, he's an atheist, right? He doesn't keep Shabbos, so he's got the status of a non-Jew for certain things. So you can say, well, he's got the status of a non-Jew. I don't have to take him to a rabbinical court. Not true. Regardless, if in certain things does not have the status of a secular Jew, sorry, as a non-Jew, regardless, if it's a Jew, you have to take him to the rabbinical court. Now, someone's going to say, but he won't go. I know for sure this person's an atheist. 100% an atheist. 100% an atheist, he'll never go. He'll never go to the rabbinical court. Yeah. So what's the answer? Right? What's the answer? So the answer is, even if he won't go, what do? You got to summons him. You absolutely have to summons them. And if that's the first time you summon them to the rabbinical court, they make a date, right? A week later, a month later, whatever it is, he doesn't show. So then what do? The rabbinical court will send another summons. Let's say for a week later. If the person doesn't show the second time, rabbinical court will make a phone call, will have somebody hand deliver the summons the third time. And if this Jew does not come to the rabbinical court the third time, then the rabbinical court will hear the case. They'll hear what this person has to say. If this person has a good claim, then the rabbinical court will allow them to go to secular court. But you're not allowed to go to secular court straight away unless you have permission from a rabbinical court. I can't underemphasize it is a severe prohibition, an absolutely severe prohibition. It doesn't matter whether this Jew won't go to the rabbinical court or not. And even if he won't, and even if he says, I'll never go to the rabbinical court, so who cares, right? You still have to summons him. If, let's say, somebody took you to secular court, two Jews, right? You have a Jew that took you as a Jew to a secular court. To go into secular court is complex. You say, listen, I only want to go to rabbinical court. I'm not interested in going to a secular court. Secular court, a lot of times goes against Torah, right? Their laws are not the same as Torah laws. A lot of them diametrically opposed to Torah. Yeah, but you're already in secular courts. So you say, okay, he took you to secular court. So what would the rabbinical court probably tell them? Summons this person to the rabbinical court. Now, usually a rabbinical court, because I sat in a rabbinical court for 5 years, my Rebbe should be well, so I got to see a lot of different things. I could write a whole book called, Tales Out of the Rabbinical Court. Only problem is I'll probably get tarred and feathered if I did it, even if I protect the names to save the innocent. Yeah, still be kind of a problem. A lot of interesting stories there, though. In any case, I saw a case come in where someone was summoned to a secular court. They came to the rabbinical court and said, we can't do anything unless you nullify that. Unless that person comes to rabbinical court, we can't do anything. Right? In other words, he has to come. He has to get rid of that case in the secular court or to go to the rabbinical court. Very good. Right? So again, third time, this person sends a summons to this Jew. The Jew doesn't come. The rabbinical court will hear the case. They'll hear what they have to say. If they have what to say, then the rabbinical court will give them permission to go to secular court. Right? That's how it works. So you can't just go to secular court. It's a severe prohibition. Now, there's another issue. There's another issue over here. The other issue is, someone will say, we just said secular court, according to Jewish law, perverts justice. If it perverts justice, yeah, then how can you go to secular court in the first place? Going to secular court in the first place, you'll know. Right? So what's the answer? Right? What's the simple answer? Simple answer is, if you have no choice, someone will cause you damage. You can't take them to secular court, right? So how are they ever going to pay? How are you ever going to get them? Essentially, what's going to happen is you're going to get stuck. So everyone will do that, right? Seemingly everyone will do it. That'll be bad. And someone will cause damage. And once someone causes damage, finished. Right? Once someone causes damage, what's your recourse? You have no recourse. But let's say in a Jewish court, we'll get a little more complicated. Let's say in a Jewish court, what could happen? Maybe you lose in a Jewish court. but maybe you win in the secular court. But if you have no choice, go to secular court. Okay, you have no choice, right? Even though it's in this case you have permission to go. Here you have written permission to go. Very good. The rabbinical court gave you permission. Fine. So if the rabbinical court gave you permission, then you're allowed to go. Oh, but you're going to tell me, but if I go, it could be a perversion of justice according to the Torah. It could be, but what choice do you have? There's no other choice. The rabbinical court today does not have the same power to enforce as they did more than 200 years ago. They don't have the same power. Everyone's told me, very interesting thing. He said that the reason, there's so many issues today, amongst the Jewish people with intermarriage and other things. He said the rabbis had a lot of power. They had a lot of power more than 200 years ago, 250 years ago. He said once power, however that happens, was sort of taken away from them, things change. So I'll give an example. There's in Panama. There's basically, almost no intermarriage. There's like I shouldn't say none. I shouldn't say almost. There's no intermarriage. Essentially no intermarriage. Why? The rabbi of that synagogue was there more than 50 years, or chief rabbi there, more than 40 years, I don't know, 30 years, 40 years, something like that, ran the place with an iron fist. With an absolute iron fist. Say, taking too much power, this, that. There are things that have to be done. And if they're not done with a strong hand, what happens? You get wishy-washy. You get wishy-washy Judaism. That's what we have today. I'm not talking about the ultra-Orthodox. I'm talking about, Reform, conservative, everyone else. It's all wishy-washy. Feel like doing it. I don't feel like doing it. Webster's fifth definition for 20 different things. Very good. Yeah, it's a disaster. It is an absolute disaster. 50, 60% into marriage. Other places, 85% into marriage or higher. It's a disaster. So, when rabbinical court had power, and they had serious power, it's a different thing. So they can't really enforce things today. There's certain things, okay, by marriage, divorce, whatever. When it comes to damages, I saw a case in front of me, hard to imagine. Whatever, two religious Jews. And one religious Jew stole $250,000, $250,000, from somebody. And rabbinical court has no recourse. They can't force it. They can't force them to pay. So, the person's guilty. The person owes the money. They can't enforce it. So he has to go to secular court. He's got no choice, right, in order to go after the person. I mean, it looks bad, right? Let's understand also another thing before I get these other questions. You have two Orthodox Jews, right? Let's say like this. I'm not even talking about a secular Jew. Let's say you have two Orthodox Jews, and they're in secular court. Should ever be in secular court. There's no reason to be in secular court if you don't have to be. You should be in a rabbinical court. A rabbinical court take care of business. Two Jews fighting, arguing, whatever it is, in front of a secular court. Here in Israel, it's worse. Here in Israel, it's 10 times worse. Because here you get, in secular court, they're all Jews. Right? They're all Jews in the court. So you get secular Jews mostly, sitting in these courts. You have two Orthodox Jews coming in front of them. How bad does that look? It looks pretty bad. What's the obvious thing they could say? Why aren't you in a rabbinical court? What are you doing here? Why should it be by us? Now, it could be if rabbinical court can't enforce certain things. Okay, so you might have to go to secular court, right? Might not have a choice. Regardless. Regardless, it looks bad. Yeah. So now, back to the question. This person, let's say this person, okay, is a secular Jew, right? The person is a secular Jew. Now, secular Jew desecrates Shabbos in public. Even if they got the status of a non-Jew, doesn't really matter, right? It's irrelevant over here. So, no matter, person atheist, whatever. So, he owes you money. Your employer is a Jew, he owes you money. Very good. So, you tell him to pay, he doesn't pay, doesn't want to pay. Or he says, I don't owe you the money, whatever it is, you got to take him to rabbinical court. Now, if he doesn't go to the rabbinical court, if he won't go to the rabbinical court, so after the third time he doesn't show, so then they'll give you permission to go to secular court. right? Now, can you report? So you take him to court. He owes you money. Take him to court, right? Take him to court. Now, the question now gets a little more dicey, or the English would say a little more dodgy over here. What happens? This person violates tax laws or other payment laws, let's say. Now, what are people afraid of? What the problem is, if you turn someone into the authorities, in general, when you're not allowed to, right? That was the case. When you're not allowed to, 100% you have the status of a moser, you lose your portion of the world to come. Now, if somebody causes damage, and they do underhanded things, this does not apply. You can turn them in. Absolutely, you can turn them in. That's not a question. Causing damage. They owe money, other issues, whatever it may be, contract payment laws, cutting corners, different things. You can turn them in. 100%, you can turn them in. Those are going to say, what's lashon hara? Person's causing damage. Person owes money. If the person's causing damage, you don't have to worry about the laws of lashon hara over here. You don't have to ask a rabbi, is this permissible to do or not? Person is causing damage. You see someone wielding a knife or a gun, there's a secular Jew. I can't turn him in. I can't try and stop him. Of course you can. Do whatever you can. Stop the person. Person's causing damage. Right? So this person's causing damage. He owes money. Right? He owes money, to employees or whatever. Turn him in. You take him to court. That's what you do. Even if it's two Jews, you got to go to the rabbinical court. If the person doesn't show up after 3 times, you go to secular court. That's what you do. You have no other recourse. You're not going to go to the rabbinical court. If it's a Jew and a non-Jew, if the non-Jew wants to go to rabbinical court, very good. Probably not. So that's not a problem. Between the Jew and a non-Jew, you go to secular court. That's not a problem. Right? Especially if he's not going to agree to go to rabbinical court. Doesn't have to go to rabbinical court. Right? There's an obligation for non-Jews in general. Right? That one of the 7 Noahide laws is what dini? Setting up law courts. Every city, every place has to have law courts. Otherwise, it would be more chaos than it is today. So therefore, if the Jew and a non-Jew, you can take him to secular court. If he wants to go to Beis Din, to rabbinical court, very good. So let him go to Beis Din. Does he have to? No. He's not under obligation. Not under obligation. Now, does it matter? We answered this. Does it matter he's not related like a Jew? No. It doesn't matter. The issue is, we're not looking at him as a non-Jew in this case. The fact is, whether he does a great job is, even if he does a great job and quote unquote has the status of a non-Jew, that makes it easier. That makes it a lot easier. Because if we say he's really got the status of a non-Jew, or she got the status of a non-Jew, what would I do? Turn him in. Take him to court. I don't have to take him to secular court. I don't have to take him to rabbinical court, if that would be the case. But the difference is he's still a Jew. It doesn't matter if he's an apostate. It doesn't matter if he's a Jews for J or who knows what, or he's Oved Avodah Zarah. He does idolatry. Doesn't matter. Right? A Jew's a Jew, regardless. And when he dies or she dies after 120 years, God's going to judge him as a Jew, not as a, he's going to judge him as a Jew, but it doesn't matter. If a Jew God forbid, Jew becomes a Christian, right? What happens? They sprinkle water on him. Do you know what happens when? I heard a great rabbi once say this, very funny, actually. What happens when they sprinkle water on you? You become a Christian. You get wet. That's it. Doesn't change anything. If a person's a Jew, a Jew by choice, or born a Jew, you convert to any other so-called false religion, doesn't matter. You're still a Jew. Doesn't change anything. Does not change one thing. Sprinkle a little bit of water, you dry yourself off, doesn't mean anything. Does not mean anything. They're going to get judged as a Jew. Right? So in that case, doesn't matter if they keep Shabbos or not. No. Doesn't matter if you're still a convert. No. Doesn't matter. I'm just talking about a case where you had 2 Jews. Right? If you had 2 Jews, right? So it gets more complicated. It gets a lot more complicated. right? But if you're a non-Jew, not a problem. You can take you can take him to secular court, not a problem. Now the question is, okay, what about reporting any illegal activities? So the question is, any illegal activities, do you have an obligation to turn them in? That's a good question. Usually we say you can turn someone in if they're causing damage. Now, who are they causing damage to? If they're stealing from the government, let's say, stealing from Uncle Sam, right, from the IRS, and they're doing underhanded things. Obviously you have to have the evidence. You have to be able to prove it. You can't exaggerate. Right? The laws of Lashon Hara also somewhat will apply. So, you got to be careful. But if they are causing damage, for sure. If they're causing damage, they're stealing. Essentially, they're stealing. So if you know someone is stealing from someone else, you don't have an obligation to try and stop them, or you don't have an obligation not to report it. Again, you have to know the facts. You can't exaggerate the facts. There are certain conditions, right? Turn them in is not a problem. That's not a problem, right? But it can't be rumors or hearsay, right? You have to have evidence. Going to court without evidence or hearsay or rumors, right? That's what they're really called. Rumors are not good. You got to have evidence. And if you don't have evidence, I wouldn't think you'd be able to turn them in. Right? If there's or you could say there's justifiable cause. Maybe it's justifiable cause because other people maybe have been taken advantage of or something like that. But they're going to ask you, they're going to grill you, and ask you all kinds of things. And it's going to look really bad if you turn someone in, you don't have evidence. You don't have witnesses, you don't have evidence. If you have evidence, very good. Right? If you have evidence, so that's good. So then that shouldn't be a problem. So again, someone who's causing damage, to others, or, let's say stealing from the government, right? Essentially stealing from the government. You have a right to turn them in? That's a good question. You're going to say, I'm not getting damaged by it. Why should I get involved? Yeah, but if it's causing damage, you got to do it. So I'll tell you a case happened to me. I mentioned this case before. Right? When I was in South America, somebody, for the sake of kashrus, was overseeing production of kosher wine. Now, by overseeing the production of kosher wine, this person, it was known to everybody, this person had Jews watching the wine. They had to not keep Shabbos. That is a big problem. That basically makes the wine invalid for Jews to drink. The man's got rabbinical supervision, and all the wine you got to dump in the garbage. You got to dump in the garbage because they don't have any believability. Someone who desecrates Shabbos, they can be the nicest person in the world. Doesn't matter. When it comes to testifying or watching something, they have no believability. None. So therefore, it's like the wine's not being watched by anyone. You got non-Jews with the wine, guess what? That's called yain neser. That's wine the Jew can't drink. Totally can't drink. Now, everybody in the community knew this. Everybody knew it. So I said, why hasn't someone reported him? Why is not, to this kashrus organization, why have they not reported him? Person was powerful in the community, had a lot of clout in the community. People were afraid because this person caused a lot of problems. So I called up my rabbi and said, listen, this is the case. This is what everybody's telling me, and this wine is being sold all over the world with rabbinic supervision that is respected in the world. So I told them, people afraid this person, this, that. He said, forget about it, report it. You got to report it. So I reported it. I called it, and I didn't go as far as I could have. But because of that, I lost my job. I was teaching in a school, right? I wasn't even there a couple months. And that's what happens. Now, obviously, this is lack of cause, total lack of cause, essentially. So that being the case, they have nothing on me. But what happened here? Right? Let's analyze a little bit what happened here. You had somebody basically screaming against me, saying he's draining my blood. I'm not even making money from this. Right? He's working for this kashrus organization. So first of all, that's a lie. That's a lie, he's not making money. But this person was screaming in public, he's draining my blood, this, that. And what happened? I'm not making money from it. That's what he claimed. Someone else claims, so someone else claims, what are you doing taking away someone's livelihood? Now, what does that tell you? I'm going to tell you what it tells you. What it tells you is somebody's lying. Either the person, who's saying I'm not making money from it's lying, which is probably the case. Right? That's probably the case. Right? Or the other person doesn't know he's not making money from it. Maybe that's part of the case. Maybe. I think doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. But somebody's lying here, for sure. So I'll tell you how far it went. So I was owed severance package. So they agreed to pay me at least for a year. Very good. But what do they want to do? Now, again, this is quote unquote an Orthodox Jew. What does this person do? Person calls me in the office and says, okay, we have an obligation to pay you, but we're not paying you until you sign this document. Now, what does the document say? What does the document say? The document says that we're only going to pay you. We're only going to pay you. You have to sign this document saying you'll never speak against any rabbis in the community. Now, what does that sound like to you? Blackmail. Extortion. I ripped the thing up in the person's face and threw it at him. I said, are you kidding? I said, this is extortion. This is blackmail. So the person looked at me and said, well, the person funding the school is not going to pay you unless you sign it. So now, you ask me the $1 million question. How can that be an Orthodox Jew? That's extortion. That's blackmail, right? You want to answer the question? How Orthodox can a person be if they do that? So I didn't take it as far as I could have. I should have, but I had different concerns. Whatever. But this can happen. Money taints a person. I can understand. I mention this all the time. That person does something for yourself, for your family. Okay. That's one thing. If you're selling something, especially something kosher, you're calling it kosher for people to eat or drink or whatever, and you're pulling shtick, you're having a secular Jew watch the wine, which renders that wine, not drinkable for any Jew. We'll call it spiritual cooties, for lack of a better term. You're going to tell me you're going to sell that wine. Whether you're making money or not, I could care less. Right? I think they're making the money, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, and still working for this kashrus organization. But be that as it may, how could you do such a thing for the masses? This is a Torah prohibition. An extremely severe Torah, actually it's probably, the rabbinic prohibition. It's a very strong rabbinic prohibition. Very, very strong rabbinic prohibition. So I can understand, again, you want to post stick in your own house, the moron that you are. Okay. So you want to give your kids treif? That's your choice. That's 100% your choice. You want to feed that to the masses? You really want to feed that to the masses? How can someone, where's the integrity? Called up my Rebbe. I asked him this question. I said, where's the integrity? He laughed. He goes, welcome to the real world. This is what goes on in the real world. Yeah, people pulling shtick and other things. I'll take it a step further. There was a school, that school has a kosher kitchen, right? They, serve food to the kids. So the foods, part of the food they serve, is meat, chicken. So they bring in a shochet, a ritual slaughter from another country. Story gets better because you can't make this stuff up. This ritual slaughter, because I asked the head of the, the top rabbi in that country. He knows all the ritual slaughterers. This ritual slaughter is not allowed to slaughter in his own country. Now, let's think about this for a second. He's not allowed to ritually slaughter in his own country. What does that tell you? It's probably not that good. When you ritually slaughter an animal, you have to have a lot of fear of heaven. Because you make a mistake. You nicked the knife or you didn't check the knife when you should have. That animal you can't eat after you checked it, after you slaughter it. You got a 600-pound cow, 800-pound cow. It's a lot of money. You got to give it to the non-Jewish. Can't eat it. You're losing money. So somebody, first of all, needs to know the laws very well. Need to learn by somebody who knows the laws very well. And then you can practice. Right? So this person has no believability to ritually slaughter in their own country. Why would you take somebody and slaughter for you and use the meat? I asked this to the head of the community, the head rabbi of the community. And his answer was very simple. His answer was, the first question I asked was, is there a doubt about this meat? He goes, no, there's no doubt about it. Straight, you can't eat it. There's no doubt. Okay, that's pretty bad. Yeah. So I asked, same question. How can it be? Person has no integrity for themselves. You're going to use this person who's not allowed to slaughter in their own country, right? And you're going to rely on this person's ritual slaughter, and you're going to serve meat to your community. Valid question. So I asked the top rabbi, in this country. I asked him, how can it be? I mean, he has to be a tremendous rabbinic scholar as well, no question. So I asked him the following question: how is it possible? How is it possible? So the person says it's not the worst thing this person has done. Yeah. You're in a position of power, right? A rabbi of a community. Got to have integrity. What you want to do in your house, I could care less. That's your choice, for your family. Very good. But you're giving this to somebody else. People are relying on you that's saying that this meat is kosher. That this chicken is kosher. Other things are kosher. But you, the head of the community, the one who's putting his name on it, you're relying on someone who should never be relied on. Now, maybe it's cheaper, whatever it is. I have no idea. How could you put treif, meat, chicken, whatever, in someone else's mouth at your expense? And you're saying it's okay. So the head rabbi says it's not the worst thing this person's done. Yeah. So if I would have known that before I went, okay. Yeah. Didn't do my research good enough. Okay. Right. So I was there for 6 months. I was supposed to be for 2 years. I left, went back to America, ended up in New Jersey for 3 years, came back to Israel. 15 years ago. But so the story didn't end. So let me finish the story. I see there are a bunch of questions here. Yeah. So this person comes to me, or I came to them and I ripped this thing up in their face. And they said, listen, if you don't sign this document, you don't get paid. I'm like, that's extortion. That's blackmail. I was like, you call yourself an Orthodox Jew? I had a lot of things to say. A lot of things to say. You know? And other people knew this. Like, well, I can't believe they did this to you. Yeah, because they're not really Orthodox Jews, are they? It's not just, I had a desire to do something, whatever, my evil inclination overcame me. This is extortion. This is a serious prohibition. Serious prohibition. You call yourself a rabbi of a community, you're an idiot. Yeah. But so I called my rabbi up and I said, okay, this is what happened. Now what? So they're not going to pay me. I said, they owe me money. So yeah, I could have probably had this whole drawn out thing, in Beis Din and whatever. But when he heard that, because there are other things I could have potentially done there, and stayed there for a couple of years or whatever. But when he heard other things that were going on, he's like, all right, you got to leave. He said, you can't stay there, you got to leave. He says, go to the States, try and find another position, whatever, go to a strong community, get your kids into school, and then whatever, and then see where it all goes. But so I said, I want them to pay me. So he told me that go in front of two people, take two witnesses, and say you're signing this under duress. It's called the Moisa Modot, doesn't really matter, right? You just tell them you're signing under duress. Now, how does that help? Here you're going to sign a document. They are going to pay me, right? How does that help? How it helps is very simple. Because really, you're under duress. You're really under onus over here. But at the end of the day, it means if you could take them to a rabbinical court or secular court or whatever and go after them, you have two witnesses that will testify and say that you signed under duress. Right? How does that help? Because if you go to court, what's the other side going to say? He signed the document. We paid him money. He signed the document. Yeah. So then the two witnesses come and said, no, you're right. He did sign the document. But he signed the document under duress. He told us explicitly that's the only reason he's signing. He wasn't signing for any other reason. So that is a very powerful argument. Very, very strong argument against. So anyway, I signed the document. They got me out of town. I left, and that was it. Right? And that was it. So the point of the story, and I always say fact is greater than fiction. The point of the story is, rabbis can be bought. Rabbis can do things that are unscrupulous. You have to know, who to listen to, who to go by. There are people out there doing unscrupulous things. Totally unscrupulous things. So how could they be called, how could they be called rabbi? So you can tell me, okay, money taints a person. Yeah, that can happen. That's one of the ways the person gets tested. Kaso, kiso, koso. Gemara and Eruvin. You test the person by how they get angry, how they drink. Koso, how you drink. Kos means a cup, right? And kiso, your pocket. What does kiso mean? Your pocket, it means how you deal with money. So people can be corrupted. Oh, they're Orthodox Jews, this, that. Yeah. The greater the person, the greater your inclination. So, again, what boggled my mind, the whole thing, and one of my personal pet peeves, most people know, I can't stand people that lie. I cannot stand people that lie. I don't care who they are. Yeah. I'm all about integrity. You got to have integrity. If you don't have integrity, nothing. You got to stand up for what you believe in. Can't be wishy-washy. You can't rely on Webster's 8th definition. Oh, it really means this. No, it doesn't. Actually. That's fraud. Essentially, it's fraud. You want to be a Jew, you do it right. Doesn't mean we don't have an evil inclination. This is beyond. This is Geneva. This is stealing. This is stealing. This is misrepresentation. This is giving people food that's not kosher. So again, you want to do it with your own family? Care less. Do it with your own family. It's your own problem. You want to give it to others? You want to say this wine is kosher? So I did the best of my ability. I warned as many people as I knew. You take this wine, it comes from this place, this rabbinic supervision, don't drink it. Don't buy it. That's as far as I could take it. I should have gone further. I didn't. For different reasons, right? But I warn people. That's my obligation. I warn people. This is a kashrus issue. You get any more damage than that for a Jewish soul? Non-Jews doesn't apply. Fine. For a Jewish soul, that stuff has to be flushed down the toilet. It's going to have a negative effect. Right? So I said, to my Rebbe after all this, I said, I learned by you for so many years. I said, you made me way too strong. He said, yeah, that should be. Halavai it should be. But I told him, I said, where's the integrity? No integrity? There's a lot of things over the years, that you wouldn't believe. How can this person say this or do that or do other? What do you mean? It's business. I'll tell you a story. Right? I know there are questions there. Right? So, I'll tell you a story. There was somebody that goes to one of the Torah giants of the last generation, and he's an Orthodox Jew. He's asking the question. He's got certain fabric. It's grade A, grade B, and grade C. So he goes to this great rabbi and he says, I want to sell it all as grade A. The rabbi looks at him and says, I don't understand the question. So he starts explaining the question, a little bit slower. So he said, I understood the question. It's G'day, it's stealing. He says, why in the world do you think that's okay? So what was the answer? Everyone's sitting down. What was the answer? He says, Rabbi, that's business. That's how you do business. What do you mean that's how you do business? If I had grade A, grade B, and grade C, can I sell it as grade A? Can I say it's top of the line? I can't say it's top of the line. That's deception. It's a Torah prohibition. Most of the laws of damages are Torah prohibitions. Most of the laws of Shabbos rabbinic prohibitions. These are severe prohibitions. No, but that's what people do. That's business. People lie. People steal. If you're an Orthodox Jew, you do that in public. That's a desecration of God's name. Not according to the strict definition. But you know what a desecration of God's name is? You know what the repentance is? Right? First of all, you have to go through Yom Kippur. You have to repent. You have to go through Yom Kippur. You have to suffer. You have to go through suffering in this world. And you have to die. In other words, even to go through Yom Kippur, you go through suffering. Right? You don't get atonement until you actually die. That's how bad a desecration of God's name is. So we're our own worst enemy. We got to be on the up and do everything we need to do. When it comes to business things and this and that, and there are people that cut corners, and there are people that lie, gives everybody a bad name. Everybody a bad name. Yeah, somebody asks, are there any problems which cannot be solved in Beis Din, in a rabbinical court? Yeah, there are things where, let's say there is a case, there's a case where you're going to have, what's it called? A fine. Right? Let's say someone's going to be guilty. They're going to have to pay damages and they're going to have to pay a fine. So the rabbis were only given certain power, certain things to judge on, after the destruction of the Second Temple. Why? Because smicha is what we call, or rabbinic ordination. If you had rabbinic ordination from someone from before the time of the Second Temple, so that would be a different thing. But since that's not the case, nobody has that rabbinic ordination today. Even if someone even someone's a Torah giant of generation, they don't have that rabbinic ordination. So therefore, they're limited. They are limited in certain things, right? That's one of them. In obvious cases, we don't have a Sanhedrin. We don't have a Jewish Supreme Court. So you can't judge, what do you call it? Death penalty. There's no death penalty. Right? Even someone would deserve it, there's no death penalty. So, or you don't have a court of 23. You need that type of rabbinic ordination. Now, one of the great rabbis, the Rebbe of the Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher, the Maharam of Rutenberg, the Maharam wanted to reinstitute this rabbinic ordination. They had a whole response on how to do it. Anyway, it didn't happen. Never happened. Right? So since it never happened, they're limited. Most things they when it comes to damages, not a problem. The issue is people will say, some people, I sat in a rabbinical court for 5 years, so it only happened once. I think once or twice that someone came in, and these were Sephardic people, so it doesn't really count because they're much more closer to tradition than Ashkenazim. But someone comes in and says, they're already ready to swear. Like, we don't make anyone swear today because we're afraid they're going to swear falsely. That's also a severe prohibition, right? I mentioned a lot of severe prohibitions today, right? It's also a severe prohibition, right? This person's already willing to swear and everything else before they sign on the document. They're going to listen to what the rabbis say. Right? They're like, I'm ready to swear. They start talking. It's like, no, you can't say anything until you sign this document. Very good. Very good. And then they say, we want judgment according to Torah law. According to exactly what the Torah says. No, the rabbis had a big smile. They said, that's great. There's only one problem. Ain't going to happen. Not going to happen. This rabbinical court and no other rabbinical court. Why not? Because everything that's done today, we don't have that level of rabbinic ordination. Right? So what do they do? So what is it called? Literally, it's called Pshara Karav Ladin. What does Pshara Karav Ladin mean? It means basically you're making a compromise, and the litigants are agreeing to whatever the rabbi is going to tell them. Right? Sometimes it's definitely, black and white. They'll say, oh, you caused damage. You got evidence. This person has nothing to say. They have to pay. Right? So, they'll have to pay. But a lot of times, since certain things you can't evaluate 100%, so they make some sort of compromise. They'll make some sort of compromise. But Torah law, since we don't have that type of rabbinic ordination, right? We don't have that level today, so there is no Torah law when it comes to many things. When it comes to laws of damages, so certain things they can't judge if they see. I saw this a few times. Right, if they see, let's say, someone's going to be liable to pay a fine or something like that, they're not going to listen to that part of the case. They're just going to chuck that part of the case. The other part of the case to deal with, but that they can't judge. Now, whatever, it's complicated. I'm not going through all the proofs and the different things, and why. I'm just, sort of cutting to the chase. But it's a lot more complicated. Why, why that's the case. Just take my word for it. That's the case. Yeah, but at the end of the day, certain things that they cannot do, they will push aside. They'll say, okay, this we can't do, this we can't judge, and we'll be able to only judge, this part of the case. But what if it's something where someone's gonna get fined a lot or would have made a huge difference? There are things that you can't do, right? The Torah, as we always say, the Torah is not silly putty. You cannot turn it into a pretzel, right? Anyone who uses that expression, I'm going to sue you that because I'm going to patent that, right? It also is a JIT. That's my patent. Right, patent pending. Yeah, you cannot just say, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that, and I want to do the other thing. If the Torah is the absolute written word of God, and you have to listen to what the rabbis say, that's it. We're not finding loopholes and different things. Oh, but they said this, they didn't say this, and whatever it is, you got to listen to what they say. Not an easy thing because most people I deal with, come out of the church, been lied to the church. Makes sense. Why would I listen to you? Great. Yeah, that's a good point. I answered someone's post once. Oh, someone asked the question. So, I saw this question. So I answered. They're like, oh, what are you listening to him for? He's a rabbi on YouTube. I'm like, yeah, why are you listening to him? Like, why waste your time? Don't listen to him. What does he know? Yeah. But at the end of the day, they are limited. They are limited, in certain things. But the most important thing they're limited is they don't have the power to enforce. That is a problem. That is a severe problem. Is that they just don't have the power to enforce. There are other issues also. We'll just throw this out there. If I took, a couple of people with me, I have my own stamp, let's say, I could open my own Beis Din. I could open my own rabbinical court. Yeah, what's stopping me? Nothing. I could do it, maybe judge cases, do other things, whether people hold by it or not, would be a different issue. But there are cases where, let's say you got two litigants, and and normally the person, let's say Reuven is taking Shimon to the rabbinical court. Shimon has the right to go where he wants. He can basically, unless, if Reuven doesn't want to go, so they can have a whole discussion. But really, the one who is being accused of things, he can go to whatever rabbinical court he wants. He has to go to a proper rabbinical court. Okay. What if you know the rabbinical court they're going to, the rabbinical court is, let's say, they take bribes. Now you can say, how can someone be a rabbinical court judge and take bribes? Oh, good question. Good question. So I've been learning, for the last year and a half, 2 years, spent probably a year going through the laws of judges. Some of the laws of judges easier than others. Obviously, when the Torah says you cannot take a bribe, who's that talking about? It's not talking about just every Reuven, Shimon, and Levi over here. It's talking about rabbinical court judges. You're going to say rabbinical court judges? They know so much Torah. They keep so many mitzvahs. How can it be? A rabbinical court judges, with all their knowledge, they're going to take a bribe? So we mentioned before that the greater the person is spiritually, the greater the evil inclination. So a person has to be squeaky clean no matter what they do. So I'll tell you how far it goes. If a rabbinical court, let's say, knows one of the litigants, or one of the litigants did a favor for them, if the rabbinical court judge cannot look at them as being guilty, and they feel that they have gratitude towards this person, they can't judge the case. They have a bias. Doesn't matter if they held out the door for them, they gave them a loan, whatever they've done that the person has any level of gratitude, unless he sees the person just as someone as anybody else, he cannot judge the case. He's got a bias. He absolutely has a bias, right? So, there could be cases where let's say one of the litigants, they happen to know is a mafioso. That's what can happen. Let's say they're a mafioso. They're afraid. If they judge the case and go against them, they're gonna be in a trunk somewhere at the bottom of the river, right? They can all, they have to be squeaky clean. Now, can there be rabbinical court judges that are corrupt? Yes. So what if that litigant? What if Reuven says Shimon owes him, $10,000, whatever it is. So he wants to take a rabbinical court. Shimon says, I want to go to Mickey Mouse's rabbinical court. But that rabbinical court's on the take. You're not going to get a fair shot. You're going to lose. Right? So there are ways out of the problem. Right? They can go to a different rabbinical court and Reuven can force Shimon to go somewhere else and not go there because, it's not a good rabbinical court, let's say. But to open up a rabbinical court, all you need is a letterhead. Very easy. Get a stamp. You're good. That's it. You don't really need that much more. You should need knowledge. I would think you just need a lot of knowledge. But the rabbinical courts out there, unfortunately, not worth spit. My language. Someone who's the head of a rabbinical court. Head of a rabbinical court, we'll throw this out there. That head of yeshiva to boot, speaks all over, well thought off after speaker, brought a missionary into his synagogue to speak. A missionary. Now, some will say he's not a top 10, not a top tier missionary. He was there as the motivational speaker. So someone who was going to do that a couple of years ago, a lot of people protested, person didn't do it, didn't go. Jewish Federation was going to pay them $50,000. Pay this non-Jewish missionary, even if it's not top tier, as a motivational speaker for $50,000. I told them I would have done it for 10. Probably 7.5. They cover my expenses. You're going to pay, a not top 10 tier missionary to come speak in your synagogue. So I made a video about it. I said, I'm going to let this person speak out of a toilet. Never mind the synagogue. I don't care if you're not speaking in front of the pulpit or whatever. front of the Sefer Torah. Even worse. So somebody does something like that, or this person also brought Dr. Ruth to speak. Now, maybe she only spoke about her Holocaust experiences, maybe. Anyone doesn't know, Dr. Ruth's a sex therapist. You bring her into a synagogue to speak in front of men and women? Yeah. So this person, I wouldn't, and this person does conversions. Anyone want to sign up? Anyone interested in signing up? I don't think so. Wouldn't trust a word this person said. Not a word. So what happened to integrity? Sit down with the person more unorthodox and say, okay, so what? What do I care them unorthodox or not? How do you justify bringing in, even if I'm going to speak about JC and all that, as a motivational speaker? What do you think? He's not going to hand out cards to people? Yeah, if you ever need anything, call me. You're going to say, oh, we're so weak in our beliefs. You don't think this guy knows what he's doing? You let him in? You let him in to speak? Wouldn't trust a word this person said. Not a word. You got to be careful. Integrity out the window. I mean, what's worse? We'll put it on a scale. You bring a missionary to be a motivational speaker, or you bring a sex therapist. I don't know. I don't know. They probably think of what's worse, but someone like that's the head of a yeshiva. It's the head of a rabbinical court. I don't trust a word, not a word. But that, as we always say, falsehood sells. It sells. All you need to do is be a great speaker. If you're a great speaker, people will flock. Doesn't matter. No, that almost doesn't matter what the person does. But this person's conversions are valid here in Israel. Yeah, somebody asks. I don't know if they asked. Let me see. Someone asked, David Melech, King David prayed and fasted till the moment he found out his child died. Yeah. Would he continue praying for the two boys? Why not? Prayer never goes to waste. Saying Psalms never goes to waste. You might not get the answer you want, but until you know for a fact that someone actually passed away, you still pray. 100% you still pray. Yeah. Once you know for sure that these two kids are dead or whatever, okay. There's no point to pray for them. Right? There is a question also. There is a question like, some people put out these lists of people that are sick, need to be prayed for. Right? So there's a question, but I don't know if they're alive or dead. So I still pray for them. Should I still pray for them? What's the answer? Yeah. You still pray until you know otherwise. Right? That's the answer. That's the answer. You pray until you know otherwise. Right? Saying Tehillim, saying Psalms doesn't hurt either way. If it's not used for them, God will take the Psalms and use it for something else. Yeah. So you continue to pray until you know. That's if they don't confirm the identities, I don't know. That I don't know. There's also rumors about, I don't know, mother and her kids that were killed. It could be, that it could be the same thing. I'm not sure, but that has been confirmed. 100% has not been confirmed. I mean, keep in mind, it's just good knowledge in general. Anything that they're going to say, the Hamas is going to say, you take it with a grain of salt. Definitely take it with a grain of salt. I would say that with the media also, but in general. So if something has not been proven and we don't know for sure, you can still pray for it. That's not a problem. That's not, and it doesn't go to waste. If it doesn't go to them, it'll go elsewhere, but it's not a waste. Definitely not a waste. Yeah. Any other, let me see, any other questions? Someone asks, we don't have another sink easily accessible where we eat. Can we wash our hands in the bathroom? Should I leave the bathroom before reciting the blessing? Yes. That you're allowed to do. It's better not to, but if you did it, it's fine. You're allowed to wash in the bathroom, you just don't make a blessing. You don't make a blessing in the bathroom. Yeah. Any other questions? Boy, hot topics today. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, there are no other questions. Then I'm going to sign out. I do this every Thursday and Tuesday, or Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Rabbi Chaim Coffman. Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com. And Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on Q&As, ethics of our fathers, Torah portion of the week, what do you call it, controversial issues. Otherwise, send me an email, rabbichaimcoffman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN@gmail.com. Motion never good. Beginning of the day, middle of the day, end of the day, depending where you are.